So, just for some background for the two of you guys, just because I haven't interacted with the two of you before here in this setting anyway, of course. I have an audio podcast that I've done for about 3 years. It's called Free Form Spiritual Wisdom. And I began to recognize relatively early into it because if you edit these things, you re-listen to it because, most of the people that are listening with headphones or whatever, high-end audio equipment. So you want to make sure that it sounds pretty well. So you have to re-listen to the whole thing. And so it didn't take me long to realize that there were segments where what I was saying was being said in a way that I don't typically say things. And there were some things I just didn't remember saying. And so I continued on, and that was more and more frequent in the podcasts. And I have a group of individuals that I've hung out with for about 20 years now. We've been associated with a guy out of Toronto who's channeled for about 42 years. His name is Serge Grambois. And I've known Serge. We've been friends for since like 2005, so about 20 years. And we meet this group of that I'm associated with. We meet every Sunday morning. And so probably a year and a half ago, I said, "Hey guys," I said, I've been channeling in my podcast, but not intentionally. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm saying, "Okay, I'm channeling, guys." It just shows up as part of the podcast. How would you guys feel if I started channeling on Sundays? They said, "Yeah, great." So every single Sunday since then, for the most part, I've been channeling, and it's interesting because there's an individual out there that you may or may not be aware of. I'm guessing you probably are. His name is Daryl Anka, and he channels Bashar. And Daryl, or I'll say Bashar, counterpart isn't quite the right word, or you could say counterpart in the one way that I know it, but a close companion named Anima. And this would be a female of their expression of that race. And so it was shortly after I began that individual made themselves aware to me and became part of the energy I was sharing. And I only learned later one of the things that they do, and actually they did this for Daryl, which was to introduce them to different energies. And this is what I experienced as well. And so as that was going on, more encompassing me, my higher me, my inner me, whatever you'd like to say, I was in conversation within my mind with that aspect of me and going, "So is there a name that we want to use?" And they were just going, "Just choose one, whatever. Doesn't make any difference." And so I came up with some ideas because I've had a strong association with dragon, what we symbolize here as dragons, and that energy and that dimension for a long time. And then I had some other symbolism that I wanted to pull in. So I was exploring that, and I mentioned it to Ray, and Ray had an idea. It's actually a Sanskrit word, and I abbreviated it and used it as part of the name. So the name began as Drago or Draco Setu, and I abbreviated it as D Setu because I like the way that it sounded, and so it's D Setu. The way that it works for me is that most typically it's the whatever you want to say, the oversoul, the essence me, the entity me, whatever, and then all the connections that are made to these other aspects of consciousness. And it's pretty flexible. They flow in and out whenever they feel the need to. Sometimes I lead off with something that's not, I guess I'll identify it in the moment as me, quote unquote. Most of the time I do. And so within the process, I've gotten pretty familiar with that me. Uh, you know how in some of the old movies where they had the pirate where the parrot would sit on his shoulder, it's kind of like that. It's right there. And pretty much I have a dialogue going on all day long as I'm just paying attention. Uh, and um, and the whole concept of this process that we're all in is we're becoming that. And so that's the process I'm experiencing. It's not like that me is so distant from this me as it used to be in the 60s and 70s and 80s, things like that. It's that's not the case any longer. And so it's very easy for me to move back and forth because I have an increasing awareness of me as that. I'm not saying that I know me as that yet, but I have an increasing awareness of me as that. So many things have changed in the way that things flow in my life as a result of that. And of course, these guys have been wonderful and all that. This was a great format to be able to explore in because this was the second group of individuals that I channeled for. And then I added another group, and then I added another group, and then there was another group after that. And so it's gotten to be very fun, very enjoyable. Um, and and it's I've noticed there's been lately within the past 3 months, 4 months, I've noticed some shifts in the process. The latest one happening maybe a month ago, where the connection has widened, deepened, whatever you'd like to say. My ability to react into it has, maybe I'll say, increased, to use a word. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I've explored for about 31 years now, and had many, like all you guys, many, many, many different very cool experiences as I've done it. Actually, right before I became aware of the Seth material, I used to be a chiropractor uh, until about 2003. And in like 2000, maybe it was in there someplace. I live in a town called Duluth, Minnesota. And Duluth is a lot like San Francisco. It's built on a hill. And so there's a road that runs along the top of that hill that overlooks the city and the river that comes into the city. And I used to come down to a park that was a very beautiful park with a big stone tower that was built in it, and take about an hour and a half for lunch in the late spring, summer, and fall, because the town I live in is pretty far north. It gets pretty cold in the wintertime here. And so on my way there one day, I got a prompting to pull over. And so I always pay attention to that stuff. So I did. And there's a little place you could pull over. And so I got out of the car and I was kind of looking kind of southwest. And it was maybe 72 degrees. It was a beautiful day. There was a light breeze blowing in my face. And I'd had some stuff going on for a couple weeks before that. Like as I would drive that same road, I was living with a friend of mine at the time, a good buddy of mine. And as I would drive that road, I was feeling the energy of the rocks that road is cutting to in a very tangible way, kind of like you would feel the heat standing next to an oven, but it didn't feel like heat. It was, of course, it was very different. So that had been going on first. And then as I got out of the car and I was facing into the wind, I just kind of closed my eyes. I was so appreciative of the moment. It was just so very nice. And my experience of what it was to me changed. And I knew myself as the me that was creating all of my experience. I knew myself as the trees, as the grass, as the wind, as this version of me. And I could shift my awareness to any of those things I wanted to. I could experience all of those at one time. And so it was a pretty neat experience. And so it was about, I'm going to make this kind of short because it can be a very long story, but I'm going to make it kind of short. And so it was about a week after that, maybe not quite that, and I was at the public library in my hometown, and I was walking through the books, and I saw this book, and it's kind of like people say, it didn't fall off the shelf, but it was like, oh, here I am. And so I pulled it off the shelf, and you'll recognize the title. It was called Seth Speaks. And as I began to read it, I realized that this individual was explaining my process, what I had just experienced. And so, of course, I read everything that Seth and Jane and Rob published together. And I was already into things a number of years before that, but I hadn't read or experienced anything to that degree. I had not encountered anything yet that expressed you're the one creating your reality. So I had the experience, and then I became familiar with that information. And so I never questioned the information because I had already had the experience. And so, yeah. So anyway, so it's interesting because it's probably been, I don't know, a decade ago or so when I had joined a session that Serge and Chris were giving, and I was in North Carolina at the time or something like that. And we were talking about, I think he was doing a course on channeling. And he commented to me, he said, "We were quite surprised that you're not doing this yet." And I went, "What do you want me to say?" So I guess I had other things to do first, and this is part of it too, is that at that time, and I thought back, I know that I was really in a process of choosing because I thought there was a choice to be made. I either was going to channel or I was going to try to become aware of the inner me to the greatest degree that I possibly could. And I used to think those were separate. And now, of course, I understand that there is no separation in that. It's just you. So anyhow, yeah, there's a little backstory. So
Thank you, Chuck. So we're ready with your process, do you think?
we would greet all of you. Thank you for the ability to be able to interact with all of you in this way. Because, of course, our interaction with you adds so very much to our experience of existence. So today, as we did on Saturday with the individual known as Lucy, we'd like to address part of the process that you're involved in within this shifting time period of yours. If you desire to lose some weight, you will begin the process of losing weight. You will change your diet. You may add some exercise. You may decide to do things differently with friends. There's a variety of things that you will do in a process to reach that weight that you would like to have. If, when you are a particular age in particular, you desire to have a particular type of a job, you involve yourself in the process that leads you, in your way of thinking, to that job. You will go to college. You will take the classes. You may involve yourself in an internship because there's a destination that you have in mind, the job. And so you involve yourself in a process to get to that destination. As explorers of consciousness, there's a destination that you have in mind. There's a particular way of expressing yourself that you would like to express yourself from. And there are these methods that you can utilize as part of your process to be able to do that. And so there are many, many, many things like this. So what we want to suggest to you tonight is, and you've heard this from others, but consciousness is about experience. It's about creating and experiencing what it's creating. Frequently within your experience, even within your exploration, you can be too focused on your destination and forget that your process is in fact just as valid of a destination as what you believe your destination is. In fact, we would say if you can focus on your process as the destination, your process will take on a different quality. Many individuals attempt to rush through their process. Many individuals will judge aspects of their process. Many individuals will say that their process should look like this, or it should feel like this. Not understanding that, first of all, the process is part of the unfolding of who and what you are. And secondly, because you are consciousness, you desire to experience. You're not necessarily so worried, we'll use that word, about what type of experiences you have within your process. Now, you will open up the doors to a process that will lead you, because that's what you're doing right now, all of you, will lead you to a greater awareness of who and what you are, because this is the movement that you're all in. However, for many of you, there are many aspects of yourselves that are still, perhaps we'll use the word hidden from you right now. And your process is there to help you to see that, to help you to understand that. In this shift of consciousness that you are presently in, you are moving into a different experience of yourself. We will use terms that make sense to you, but you will move into that experience through experiences, not through listening to somebody's words or reading somebody's words, even though you are deeply connected in how those words are being expressed in your reality. It's the experience and what you choose to do with the experience that will move you in whatever direction you're going to be moved. Now, the deeper you, the wider you, the higher you, the oversoul you, whatever phrase you would like to use, will, of course, supply with you and supply for you situations and circumstances that provide for you the opportunity to express yourself in the way that you would like to express yourself. And to learn about yourself, we'll say at the same time, because if you find yourself in challenging situations, if you're observant, they've provided you with an opportunity to learn about yourself. And knowing yourself is one of the most powerful things you can do in this movement, because it gives you the opportunity, as we spoke of on Saturday, to make choices in the directions that you would actually like to make your choices. Because as an expression of consciousness, choice is a continual thing for you. You are always choosing. Many times within this experience, and this is an issue of a sort in this time period for individuals that explore, it is very nice for you to understand why you are making the choices that you are making. Not necessarily that you judge the choices if you don't make the choices that you wanted to make. There's always another chance in the next moment. It makes no difference, the choice that you've made just a moment before, because you can always choose differently. But to understand that the choice is in fact yours, and to feel that the choice is in fact yours, to not feel influenced by others, by your environment, by your beliefs, that you should choose in a particular way. So being able to choose in the moment, in the way that feels authentic to you, is eventually where you will find yourselves and where you will all be expressing yourselves from. So, of course, there will be, in terms of the way you use time in that linear flow, a process that will be involved with all of that for you. In that, the more you can be appreciative of that process, the more you will find that process, perhaps we'll say, working in your favor. The more in the midst of that process, you will become aware of the communication that's coming from that wider aspect of you, that more encompassing aspect of you, that is always there to guide you within your process. Because if you are judging your process, we can pretty much guarantee you, I guess we can use that word, that you will miss a lot of that information that is coming your way. So, to understand that, and perhaps to express it in a way that other individuals have, if you are in the moment, if you are in the now, you are embracing your process. You are not overly concerned about what the destination is that you are attempting to get to. Because if you're doing that, part of what you're doing is you are disregarding what you're creating in the moment. You're saying that it's not as valid as this other place that you want to be, which can never be true, of course, because all of your moments are valid. All of your expressions are valid. All of your experiences are valid. So we thought that we would lead with that. And so if there are questions or ways that you would like us to fill that out, or anything else that you would like to do with it, we are very open to that.
Oh boy, anything to fill it out. Thanks to Setu. You mean it's like karaoke now if we want that? We can have a little animated entertainment center for you.
Indeed, you get to dress it up any way that you would like to.
I will let others do that. Maybe they will request physical slapstick comedy or something like that. But I have a question for how the Earth Collective will be interacting with us differently after the ascension of humanity, because I know we'll have this telepathy with everything and it will be much more synchronous, supporting, and loving. And maybe I'm just answering my own questions, but I'd love to have your take on that as well, please.
So express that to us once again, please.
Well, most of us here, or maybe all of us, are aware that humans will be telepathic after open contact and integrating the hybrid children and other things, and that the ascension of the Earth Collective, including humanity, because every species on the planet, every consciousness will have an where they will be operating in a different vibrational range, we will say, than before, and all of our interactions will change because with telepathy, there's no deception or anything like that. And as we become a more synchronous society, obviously nature and Gaia and the other energies on the planet will be part of that. So
Yes.
I'd like to know how that interaction with nature will change for humans. Please.
So you do understand that, of course, it is all of you, the collective consciousness of this planet, that is driving this movement. It is nobody else that is driving this movement. All of you, anybody who's chosen to participate in this physical dimension, has also chosen to have this shift occur for them and with them. Now you have other expressions of consciousness that express themselves in other dimensions that, like many, many aspects of consciousness, are there to aid you in this movement that you are directing. As you move forward, just as you look around your planet now, you can see that there are various, we'll use this word in the moment, levels of understanding that individuals have about themselves. There have been on your planet, always, certain groups of individuals who had that open awareness of who and what they were, and were able to interact with other aspects of themselves, including those aspects that you would call other dimensional beings. This movement of yours will lead you to that type of an awareness. All of you in those deeper aspects of yourselves are already aware of this. How this will occur will depend, for each individual, will depend on each individual. As individuals choose the way that they want to interact with their experience, they will have various expressions that they will involve themselves with of being able to interact with other layers of their own consciousness or other consciousnesses that are associated with what all of you are doing here. Other individuals showing up on the planet will not necessarily mean that all the individuals on the planet that aren't at a place that they want to change their consciousness yet are going to do that. If you pay attention to the way that individuals presently interact with individuals on your planet who have been sharing this type of information for 20 years or 30 years or longer, you will realize that nobody has miraculously moved to an open awareness of who and what they are. They have done it incrementally for the most part. Now, yes, that is increasing in speed for all of you. You are pushing your own boundaries in that regard. But it is not another dimension, and the individuals who reside there and their interactions with you that will all of a sudden mean that you will see yourself differently, because it is still going to be your choice, each individual's choice. Now, when that occurs, the likelihood is that the individuals that interact with those aspects of consciousness will have, to varying degrees, reached an awareness within themselves that allows themselves to interact with individuals that are expressing themselves in what we'll call now other layers of consciousness. In that, as your awareness widens, you will understand the nature of the planet and the other planets and the way that other things are expressed on the planet. You will understand, you've heard for quite a number of years now that you are the one that's creating your experience of reality. You create your immediate reality. Many individuals don't quite wrap their mind around what that actually means. You're creating the room that you sit in right now. You're creating the planet that you reside on right now. You create the solar system that you're living in right now. You're creating the galaxy that you're living in right now. You create the universe that you're living in right now, along with the concepts of the ideas that you utilize for all those things. Each individual does that. So the planet, in that regard, is not a separate entity from you. It is an aspect of you. Just like you are an aspect of the endless you, the planet is another aspect of the endless you. There's a tendency, and it's not a wrong tendency. It's a tendency born out of the experience that you've had here to draw delineation around things and to say that this expression of consciousness is separate from this expression of consciousness. It's like putting your hand in the ocean and saying that the ocean on this side of my hand is different than the ocean on this side of my hand. That is not the way that consciousness actually expresses itself. It is your experience here that is quite a different thing. When your awareness widens, you will understand the flowing nature of consciousness. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with the ideas that you hold right now about a planet that is relatively separate from you, or about an expression on the planet that is relatively separate from you. Those are means that you utilize within your journey and your understanding. So again, realize that as your awareness widens, your questioning will change, because your questioning comes from your current state of understanding. As your understanding widens, your questions will become different until you will be at a place where you will no longer need to question somebody else, because you will have your own answers.
I appreciate that, and I assume that goes for every bit of consciousness in the Earth Collective as well.
Indeed.
I rest my case. Thank you for the answer.
Hi, Dissetin.
Hello, my friend.
Hello. The fluid identity in the infinite now, that is the primordial task of the being that we are. And in doing so, we become into the expansion of the awareness of the various things that define what we are in some sense. Is that the way to also deal with the collective? Let's call it the collective role that we can play. And can you expand on that?
Your part in aiding the collective is in being who you are to the greatest degree that you possibly can. All choices that you make, all ways that you express energy, and every time you make a choice, you express energy, all of that is shared by all of, will just stay with your collective consciousness. It is shared through the collective consciousness. And in that regard, because you are who you are, and you make your choices from who you are, which means they have a particular type of energy to them, they lend in that regard to the rest of the collection, making choices in a similar way. They offer the choice in, perhaps we could say, a little more obvious manner. So in other words, as another individual on your planet is faced with an opportunity, you making choices from a place that's a genuine choice within yourself, we'll say it that way, aids that individual in being able to do things themselves when they're finding themselves in that opportunity. You do not need to do anything different. However, you're all also aware that as individuals who explore who and what they are, you are yet in the minority on your planet. There are many individuals on your planet who do not involve themselves in this exploration yet. As all of your energies continue to move, the experiences that these individuals begin to have will become increasingly confusing for them. They will not know why life is doing what it is doing. Even as explorers, if you walked into your home and found every piece of furniture different, and you're the only one with the key to your house and you were only there 4 hours ago, could you be okay with that? If you walked to your car and it was a different color, would you be okay with that? If you went to your workplace and half of the individuals there were different than what you remembered from the day before, but everybody else thought that they had been there for a very long period of time, would you be okay with that? And things of that nature. How fluid, how flexible can you be with experiencing a reality that's different than the one that you experience right now? As explorers of consciousness, you've had experiences that you know come from, we'll just call it, outside of the usual realm of what your experience is. You're getting used to those things. The other individuals on your planet who do not do this, they are not used to those things. When they have those experiences, they tend to look for the common reasons why they're having those experiences. There is something mentally wrong with me, and things of that nature. They don't know if they should talk to anybody about it. They don't know if they should go see somebody about it. They don't know that if they go to see somebody about it, will they be locked up because of what their experience is? right? There is anxiety with those individuals. There is fear with those individuals many times. You, if you choose to, can share information, and we mean all of you and anybody else who does this, to provide the opportunity that those individuals may run into, in whatever way that they may run into it, that can help to answer some of the questions that they have. Because not everybody is doing what you're doing. Most yet are not. Now you need to meet them where they are. You cannot expect them to understand what it is that you understand. So your role in this primarily is to be a very good listener. To park any amount of judgmentalism you may have as far back in your consciousness as you possibly can. You need to understand the individual that you're interacting with in the moment. Then you need to approach them, if you choose to, in a way that's going to make sense to them. Now, all of you will have the ability, whether you recognize it in the moment or not, to read that person's energy as you are interacting with them. If you're paying attention to that, you can feel when you begin to move too far for them. And then you can slow things down and you can end your conversation as far as that direction is concerned. Now, you do not need to do this. Again, your choices echo through all of consciousness. But if you choose to approach individuals in a way that almost, we could say, allows them to lead that interaction. Have we answered your question, my friend?
You have. And I think that you implicitly also said, whatever happens in the external, flow better and better with it.
All of you, as a result of your explorations, all of you, as a result of the inspiration you have to continue in this regard, will see results in your exploration. If you have any questioning in that regard, we would express to you to attempt just to leave that where it sits right now and to continue walking. You will have results. You will see changes. You will see changes in you. Many times, those changes may be surprising to you. We've suggested this to individuals before. In your life, if you can, begin right now to accept whatever differences, whatever changes show up in your daily life. Just accept them. You don't even need to know why it is that they're happening. Just accept them, because in your own journey, you will have experiences that you will not be able to explain. You will not be able to look at your past and apply it to the experience that you just had and have it make sense. You need to just be accepting, and you need to trust. You need to trust you. We mentioned this on Saturday, and we'll mention it again. If you can think back to what we will term in this moment a younger you, and a challenge that you were involved in as that younger you, from this position, now with more awareness and understanding of what the outcome of that event was, and information that would be helpful, would you not offer that information to that younger you? Would you not do it in a way that now, in a more knowing way, would be the most effective as it could possibly be? You, of course, would. The other aspects of you that are simultaneously in existence, that have already had the experiences that you've had, are doing the same thing for you. If you can trust that, if you can relax into that, you do not need to know, we will suggest, all the reasons why all the steps in your process are taking place. many times things will occur that will lead you to something else or will not unfold for you until a number of hours or days or weeks or maybe longer have gone by. If you can allow that, if you can allow yourself to trust in you and the experience that you are bringing to you, you will find your process going smoother for you. So we will answer you in that way.
Thank you. David.
Welcome.
I had a question about your own definition of ascension, but you already answered it in so many ways. Thank you.
Yes, we felt that actually. None of the terms that any of you have used historically for yourselves are incorrect or wrong terms. They all serve a purpose for you in the moment that you use them. As you become increasingly aware of who and what you are, you utilize different terms. And in that regard, the older terms will fall by the wayside. After a while, terms will no longer be necessary. It's like now, when one of you has some sort of an expansive experience and you express it to another individual that you know is also an explorer, you use terms like, it's like this. You know what I mean, right? Things of this nature, where you know they've had experiences. And so you connect to them because they've had experiences. Now, of course, both of your experiences were unique. They were not the same experience, but you know that they've had experiences. And because they have some idea of the experience that you've had. And so as you continue to push the boundaries of the reality around you, you will utilize many different symbols. You will utilize many different ways of opening the doors to the information that are there from the deeper you into the experience that you're having right now. And all of them are valid.
Thank you. Heidi.
Hello.
Hmm.
So my question is relating to the fluctuations, the highs and lows of the vibrational energies I might feel either day to day or even within a day. So I might have an experience, like for example, during a satsang, where I'll feel a very high vibrational energy coming through. I'll feel joy or in a lot of peace and sometimes very blissful. And I have a desire to share these feelings in that space. And then later on in the day, I might turn around and want to go do something typical, like go to a movie, or it's just a whole different energy. I think I'm asking this because recently I felt the energy of another being, and it really felt to me like they are always in that constant state. And so, I'm here flipping around to different energy states, and I'm just not sure what to think about that. And so I'm wondering if you have any words on that.
So we're going to ask you this just really briefly. Do you believe that it should be different?
That's a really good question. And in some ways, I think I do. It might be more like, could it be different? No, should it be different? Should it be different? So maybe I'm just exploring all of this.
So keep in mind, it's a physical experience that you're within right now, that you're having. You've heard from others, we've expressed it as well, that as you become increasingly aware of self, And we'll use these terms just within the conversation. You have an awareness that you are the oversoul. Yes. Whether you experience it now or not. You have an awareness that you are all that is. All that is. Now, we'll come down to a layer that maybe is a little bit easier to wrap your mind around, the oversoul. Within that expression, all expressions of what you would term good and bad, right and wrong, better and worse, are occurring. All expressions, because they're all expressions of consciousness. Any expression that's occurred on your planet that you are either familiar with or unfamiliar with is an expression of consciousness. It's all contained within consciousness. As your awareness widens, you will become familiar with all of that. We'll phrase it now, for the sake of the conversation, on both sides, shall we say, although there are no sides, of course. From within the experience, from within your history and the way that you define things as a race, quote unquote, you see things as better or worse. You have ideas as you explore the wider versions of who you are, that exploration means that you will express yourself only in certain particular ways. But that will not be true. And it will not be true because you are in this experience. You are in a physical experience. You are also not in a physical experience. Any dimension that you can possibly imagine is someplace that you are also. You are already in those places. You are already having the non-physical experience. What you may want to attempt not to do is to compare your experience or to say that your experience should be of a particular nature or feeling state. You chose this experience for yourself. You chose to participate with the other aspects of consciousness that also chose to participate within this physical experience, within the model of this physical experience, within the themes of this physical experience, and you continue to choose it. That means going to a movie. That means going to dinner. That means having physical relationships. That means going for a swim. That means exploring the deeper parts of who and what you are. That means attending satsang. That means expressing yourself in community with those individuals. That means anything that you may experience within this reality. None of it is better than the other. Will you have more of the other experiences? Yes, you will. Will they have a different feeling to them? Yes, they will. Will you discontinue doing them? No, you will not, because you are in physical experience. Now, depending on how long you hang around, we will say, as the centuries unfold in terms of times, yes, your planet will express itself in different ways. Those things will look different. You will express yourself differently. In your familiarization with the individual called Bashar, those individuals express themselves in a way where they no longer need to eat food. You would not find yourself at a restaurant living in that dimension with that society. You would also not find yourself having sexual intercourse because that no longer happens for them. There are many things that they don't express. Your expression in this moment, in this dimension, is what it is. And so there's going to be that variety in your expression. There are those around your planet still who will just use the word believe. And again, this is not right or wrong, but it is their way of seeing things, that as you become more of who you are, that you need to leave those things behind. We'll suggest not necessarily. Now, recognize, of course, that those philosophies were established in a time period when this movement was not happening. They were established in a time period where most individuals on the planet knew nothing about the deeper them that was there. And so the expression that they put forward was meant to provide information and an example of a different way of being. Because at those times, there were essentially two states of being. The state where you seemed to be cut off from who and what you were, and the state where you're once again connecting with who and what you are. This is no longer the case. Now, an increasing number of you are becoming aware of what you are. In that, you do not need to look at your exploration of that movement in such black and white ways any longer, because it's not actually that. You're meant to enjoy your experience here as fully as you possibly can. All aspects of your experience here matters not what they are. You already are what you are. You are already the Oversoul. You are already one with all of consciousness. Nothing that you do here can possibly change that. Nothing that you do here can change that. So embrace your experience here, embrace your exploration, and understand that the other is not a counter distinction to the other one. They work together. They flow together. They are both your expression. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think that it just means to not judge an experience for in comparison to another experience, but then just to focus on each one as it is happening.
Yes. From your present position, and here we're talking about everybody, you do not know what the experience of all of you is like. All of you guess at what that experience is like. You have ideas about what it means to express yourself in that way. And because of the history in terms of linear time that you've had with religious organizations, there are ideas that you utilize in your exploration that your exploration should be had in particular ways, that there are aspects of creation that are better than other aspects of creation are. When individuals use the word divine, many times they use the word in distinction to something else. In other words, this is divine, this is not divine. If all is consciousness, how can that be true? We suggest it cannot. The ant walking on the sidewalk, the pile of fecal material that the dog that was walking on the sidewalk has just left there is no less divine than any other expression. It is all consciousness. But of course, within the flow of your time periods, within the religious movements that you've been involved in for a certain number of centuries, you have put forward ideas that have led to that type of language. There's nothing wrong with that type of language. It developed a particular experience for you. But the concept is again, everything is an expression of consciousness. In that, there is not one thing that is more divine than something else. There is no individual that is more divine than another individual. There is no individual actually on the planet who has ever been on the planet that contains more information than you do at this moment. Do you have the same access to it in this moment? Perhaps not. But they contained no more information than you have, no more awareness of who they are as consciousness. So in this movement of yours, what you're doing is you're pulling back the veils to the awareness of yourself that is already there, that already exists. So in that, again, enjoy your experience of reality. Explore what feels right for you to explore in your reality. If that's a relationship, do that. If that's a dinner, do that. If that's a movie, do that. Whatever it may happen to be, there is no wrong in your exploration. There is no better in your exploration. If it feels genuine and authentic to you, make that choice.
So, could that mean that these different energies I'm feeling are a result of just my interpretation of what things are good, bad, better, and best?
It's also the idea of you believe that consciousness expresses itself in one way when you reach a particular level. We'll just use that word right now, but it does not. Consciousness is expressing itself in an infinite number of ways all of the time. You would not be able to comprehend even a very small part of that right now, only because you've focused your awareness down so very tightly to have this type of an experience. So part of what you're experiencing there is the natural variegatedness that you experience in consciousness. We'll use the television analogy. Let's say that you walked into a store that specialized in selling TVs. And they had this huge wall, and on that wall they had 100 TVs, and each of those TVs was playing a different show. You would find it quite challenging in this moment to stand in front of that wall of 100 televisions and pay close attention to all of those shows at one time. You might be able to pay attention to 2, 3, 4, 5, perhaps, even a little more than that, depends on the individual. The you of you has no problem with that type of experience of their attention and their ability to pay attention to many things at one time. So your experience is in part to help you understand the fluctuations and the variability of your consciousness as well, that it moves from this to that, from this to the other thing. You explore here, then you explore there. You explore this type of thing, then you explore this type of thing. In actuality, of course, what you're doing is you're exploring those all at the same time, but within the flow of a linear experience of time. You're moving all over the place all the time. So again, there are many experiences that you're not familiar with yet within your reality, and you'll utilize various types of expressions within your experience to help you become increasingly familiar with the natural way that you express yourself as that wider you. That is one of those as well.
Thank you to say too.
Setu, can you take one more question?
Absolutely.
And thank you to Heidi. The question has to do with the hybrid blueprint and the remembering of the many I's or the many U's that we're doing. Those two things seems to be very connected. They're coming here from what appears to be an external angle, but clearly it's an internal reflection of the merging of different I's, call it counterparts or dimensions and so forth. Can you comment on that?
how to begin. As you began your experience here of your physical reality within consciousness, there were various, maybe we'll call them flavors of consciousness that became interested in constructing this type of an experience. As they did that, there was a great deal of experimentation that went on with how life, we'll call it that in this moment, was expressed in association with your planet. And some of your myths talk about those types of things. Now, you know individuals who have a very natural affinity of gaining information through nature. Because you do these types of things, you are quite familiar with individuals who gain information through what is called channeled sources. There are individuals in your society who, when they sit down with children, gain the same type of information from a child that you gain from Bashar or from Seth or from others. There are certain individuals who, whether it's a dog, whether it's another human being, they hear audibly information come from that particular individual or that animal. Matters not what it is. It's the way that consciousness, a certain flavor of consciousness, is sharing information with those individuals. There's another flavor of consciousness that understands the potency and the ability to catch your attention with the idea of what are called extraterrestrials. And so within that theme, information is shared that is the same as can be gotten in all these other ways. Now, it's not that those individuals do not actually have an existence, because of course you exist within your dimension. They exist within their dimension. And it may also be that those individuals within their dimension have an awareness of your dimension and have an awareness of what you're doing here. But just like when you leave this existence, when you quote unquote die and you move into a transition period of yours, your higher self or other higher selves many times will create for you images in energy of individuals that you knew here to help to ease you through that process. It will not actually be those individuals. They will flavor those individuals with the same feeling tones that you recognize, because they will utilize what you're aware of when they do that. Usually those individuals are involved in their own process, and we'll use this term by that time. So like that, consciousness and the aspects of consciousness that are associated with your experience here utilize various ways to catch your attention and to supply you with information. Now, you're very used to thinking yourself as the singular human body. Earlier on, there was a little discussion about which probable you is the probable you. And of course, all probable yous are equal in that. Just like all of those probable yous flow from a particular expression of consciousness, which is you, which is also all of them. Utilizing that theme, that expansive aspect of consciousness is also contained within a much larger expansion of consciousness, and that continues without any end. Now, to utilize that segregation is something that makes sense to you. In actuality, again, like the hand in the ocean, it doesn't actually work quite like that. So you have a number of things that are happening simultaneously. You have expressions that have gone on, we'll say, as long as the idea of your planet has been in existence. And as your experience on the planet has changed, those have taken on a little bit different form, shall we say. So at one point, one of these flavors of consciousness understood that if it expressed itself as the various gods that you were developing ideas of within your cultures, that of course that would have meaning to you. And information could be expressed through that device. In your current time period, those gods are now extraterrestrials. They're individuals from other dimensions. Because of your experiences with cars and ships and airplanes and rocket ships, the idea of them showing up within a vehicle makes sense to you. You can utilize that idea. However, please remember, you are the one creating your reality. When you witness an airplane in front of you, you're creating that airplane. You configure it out of consciousness. When you or anybody sees something in the sky that is not from this dimension, you have created that. The individual has created that. That doesn't mean that it's not an expression from outside your dimension that has somehow interacted with your dimension. That part is accurate. But the translation of that energy makes sense within the experience of the dimension. As your awareness of yourself widens, you will become increasingly aware of more of the nuances of how it is that the rest of consciousness reaches into your experience to nurture you along. And it will use whatever methodology that consciousness knows will be effective to help you to open more doors within who and what you are. It doesn't mean those methods are not valid. It doesn't mean that there are not individuals that express themselves in other dimensions just like you do within this dimension. It doesn't mean that some of those individuals may not have an awareness of what you're doing in this dimension. They certainly may. It also does not mean that some of those individuals may not be able to interact with you within consciousness and then have you translate that into your experience here, because you can and you do. But it is a rug that has many threads that goes through it. There are many layers to your experience. That theme is one of those layers, shall we say, one of the threads that you use to aid you in your exploration, to aid you in your opening of your awareness. And you do it quite effectively. It catches your attention quite well. It helps you to question. It helps you to explore. And in that, what do you find? More of yourself, which is, of course, the point. Probably the most proliferative individual right now on your planet that expresses with that flavor is the individual that you call Bashar. This individual themselves will tell you exactly the same thing. The information that they shared is meant to help you understand who and what you are. Whether you believe in their existence, in whatever way you believe in their existence, is not of importance. It's what that experience does for you that is important. It's how it shifts you or has the potential to shift you. Remember again that you have brought that experience to yourself because you know it will have an impact. It will know that you will question as a result of it. You will become inspired as a result of it. You will investigate as a result of it. And in that investigation, again, you will find more of yourself.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are ready to return to